to the Happiest Sad Person Podcast. I'm Alessandra, your returning host for the second episode in a row after a long hiatus. To all my old listeners, thanks for listening and continuing to listen. And to my new listeners, hello, welcome. So last week, I had mentioned that I was going to do the Rachel Carson Trail challenge, which it happened. It was more intense than I realized. Let me begin by saying what the challenge is. It's over 36 miles from sunrise to sunset. And from my understanding, and I've hiked parts of this trail before, it's like a traditional hike, some rolling hills, mostly flat in the woods, but nothing wild, crazy, out of control. And I was wildly unprepared. It was brutal hills. Elevation was really intense, and there were three basically crawling on your hands and your knees upright, sort of mountain faces that you had to climb. And I was not expecting that at all. And I am a runner that runs forward. Once you get external hip rotation involved, and then internal hip rotation, I'm out. I have a wonky hip. I walk with overpronation, so my feet go inward. I have to fix that. That's on the next to my to-do list. And so I was dying by mile 26, my hip was locking up. And then by mile, I would say 30, the entirety of my heel ripped open. So I had a blister that was starting, and my heel, I felt it. It was like, you can feel when you have a blister, right? It feels bubbly and it feels like your skin is raised. And so I could feel that starting, and then mile 30, it entirely ripped open and everything was like jelly and raw. And then for the rest of the hike, I felt that constant rubbing, and it was brutal. We did not get a technical finish. However, my brother, who did it with me, says that we ended up finishing it because we took some detours. We made a wrong turn that allowed us to add some time to our trek, which hurt us in the end. I took a long break and chatted with someone at the third aid station that took way too long, because I lose track of time and just start jabbering and chatting with people. And then we befriended a guy, and he had already had an injured knee, and so we kind of hit his pace, and then that slowed us down. So I was the second to last person on the trail. My brother was the third to last. There was one Indian guy behind us, and then there were two other Indian guys in front of us. And the trail sweepers found us at the last checkpoint. And we were so close. We got over 35 miles, but in the end of the day, and adding up all of our random external walking, we ended up hitting like between 37 and 39 miles that day. So even though it drives me crazy that we did not get the technical win, we sort of completed our own challenge, which was finishing and having the mental toughness to just keep going. Like at one point I was like, I want to tap out. But we made the final checkpoint before the trail sweepers came through with a minute to spare. So that was like a sign where I'm like, all right, let's just power through, see what happens. I mean, we literally were running at some points. So it was, another point. Normally I run with music or a podcast or something to keep me going. But I made a deal with my brother that I would do it without music or any external stimuli for at least like, I forget what it was, maybe at least the first two checkpoints, but I ended up doing the entirety of the trek without anything, no music, no external stimulation. I mean, I did talk to my brother and then to the other guy on the trail that we had met, but I think that's why I struggled so much. And I also think that that's why it was such a mental toughness challenge to stick it out, to deal with the embarrassment, because it is embarrassing not being able to finish and basically being the second to last person on the trail. There's an element of embarrassment to that because that means you're quote unquote last. I wasn't technically last, but I was second to last. But there were a lot of people we would watch just drop out. They would just stop. The guy we originally met up with, he basically couldn't keep up, and we didn't ditch him, but we just had to go our own ways because we had to go down this hill. And then I don't know if he made those turns. I still want to email him and say, hey dude, sorry. But saw one girl going down backwards down a hill in tears, crying because she was in so much pain in her calves that seized up. And then one woman, before we had reached the last checkpoint, was just put her bag down, set it down. We happened to be nearby, was still in the middle of the woods, and she just goes, I'm done. I don't know how she was getting back because she either had to turn around and go, I don't know, at that point, another 3 miles back, or she just had to continue to the next point and I guess just continue the trek, but not in the appropriate time. So that was just sort of Nate, my brother and I, Nate, it was my brother, he and I just kind of laughed at each other like, all right, I guess this lady's out. And it's, we were the ones that were kind of last on the trail, just still trekking. And it was funny. The refrain I had in my head, because I had no music and no anything really to keep me going. I had read an article the day before about the Elvis movie, and BAZ LUHRMANN directed it, if I'm not incorrect. And the name that kept popping in my head, almost like as like a neurodivergent chant, was BAZ LUHRMANN. I do not know why. I think my brain had so much, neurons firing, it needed to do something. And so every mile or so, just BAZ LUHRMANN in my brain. I don't know why. But yeah, overall, it was an amazing experience. It's funny, a friend of mine who was supposed to do it with me, she ended up not doing it because she just hadn't prepped for it. And she was like, yeah, it's not happening. And she texted me the next day and she's like, so are you going to do it again next year? Like, how was it? That day I was like, or the day of finishing the race, I was like, never again. Next day, I'm like, all right, yes, I'm in. I got to finish it at some point in my life. Like, actually train now that I know what this race entails and how brutal the hills are. And like, I need to get my hip in check and figure out all of that. But it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. Physically taxing, mentally taxing. The duration, we were on the trail for like 16 hours. We started at 5 a.m., got to the final checkpoint at like 9:15, and then we had a car take us, because it was too dark and we had the trail sweepers, the next mile, which I'm so mad we were not able to do like through the actual course, to the final spot. So it was a long day, and the night before I'd only gotten like, I don't know, 3 hours of sleep. So that might have been part of it too, because I couldn't fall asleep because I stay up late at night, and then I also was very anxious. So was not what I expected. I currently have two giant my big toes are black. I have two black toenails. I don't think my big toe nails are gonna go, but what would I guess be considered the index toe on my left foot, I did lose that toenail, but it's growing back, so that's a good thing. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I did it. I'm glad I did something that I really wasn't prepared to do. I wasn't in the shape to do it. It made me realize how far I am from like good shape that I want to be. Um, how much I let myself go during COVID, and how much I miss challenges like that. I think ultimately it showed me like, while you're doing it, it's miserable. While I was doing it, I was like exhausted, tired, miserable. First 15 miles, great. After that, it started going downhill. And yeah, during a challenge like that, you are miserable to a certain degree, but you can sort of control that misery by how much you change, how much you train. Wow, struggling tonight. Um, and I want to get back into that, and I have a long way to go. That's what I've realized. I mean, granted, this was a really tough challenge, and it's funny that this is essentially completing this challenge, because I had done 35-mile plus on the actual trailhead, and then we did, you know, between 2 and 4 miles, like externally, and making wrong turns and stuff in the challenge. So it's funny that doing nearly 40 miles that day made me realize, like, oh no, I'm in bad shape. Boo hoo hoo. When in reality, I don't know, I should be really proud of myself for even being able to do it and sticking it out when some people were dropping like flies toward the end. My brother and I just kept trekking. I mean, he was killing it. He was climbing up hills like a monkey, and he was like running along, and it was, I think he thrives in that sort of like, I don't even know, almost like climbing the monkey bars type motion, where I do not. I'm a run straight for as long as I can type person. But I want to change that. I want to get more diverse in training, in building muscle. It made me realize how weak my arms are, because climbing up hills and just being able to rely on your little fingers holding your whole body up. Yeah, my arms are like jello. And the night finishing the race, my whole body was so sore and in so much pain that I couldn't fall asleep. I was so tired, but my body was in so much pain. I couldn't fall asleep. I was just like, this must be what hell feels like. And it's so silly because it was my own doing. Like I did this to myself. I paid for it literally. Like I spent money on this challenge, but it all worked out in the end. It taught me lessons that I can be proud of myself. Even if I didn't get that technical win, I still made a lot of wins, both mentally and physically, that I'm proud of. Now, the day of, and during the race, my brother will tell you, I was complaining the entire time and so angry at myself for not being able to finish and not getting the right time and being last and blah, 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 blah. But after the fact, and after I took some time to think, I was like, oh, you know what? We did a good job. I did a good job. And there's always next year, and it's a good story. And sure, we had some detours along the way, but I guess just like life, those are the things that are stories. Like meeting new friends along the trail, stopping and chatting, like the struggles, being last, well, second to last. That one position makes a big difference. And just not having things go the way you expect. That's life. What would life be if there weren't any struggles, there weren't any detours, there weren't any failures? Failure is just a moment in time. It's just like a little pinpoint location, and then you go beyond it, and then it's just a memory, it's just a story, it's just like an anecdote you can laugh with your friends. If you stop at that failure and don't go any further and try again, sure, then you're just living in, I don't know, Failureville, to like continue this, I guess it would be extended metaphor. I don't know. And yeah, I think sometimes people do these challenges to, of course, get in shape and to physically challenge themselves. But I think I did this too, And I did that originally for that purpose, to challenge myself physically, but I didn't expect the mental lessons, the mental toughness that I built. And I listen to a lot of ultra marathon runners, and they talk about Courtney Dauwalter specifically, the pain cave, which is like you sort of embrace the pain, you learn from the pain, you sort of scrape yourself out of this pain cave. And I think that's a really good way to deal with struggle and strain and stress, both in something you choose to do, like an ultra marathon, or in this case, like an ultra hike, or just in general in life. I think it's a really good lesson. And I think that's ultimately what we seek out when we do challenges like this, when we want to do something out of the norm. We want to carry over these experiences into life. Sure, we can brag and tell these stories of like, oh my God, we did this thing and that thing. But also we can say like, I learned this, I learned that. This is coming into my real life and it's making a difference in some way or another. And so, I don't know. Yeah, I'm really grateful for the experience. I'm really grateful that my brother joined me, and I'm really proud of how well he did. Like, he killed it. And he was the motivator and the inspiration to keep going, because he was just like, all right, let's just keep going. Come on, another mile. Let's go. Let's go. And again, another metaphor. I think everyone in their life needs somebody who is that for them. The person that champions you on the sidelines and goes, come on, you can do it. Just a little bit longer. It'll suck, but no big deal. And yeah, I'm grateful that he was the one that did it with me. I hope he'll do it with me again. My guess is that he might, if I coerce him to, and I show that I actually trained and we do training hikes and stuff like that. But my dream would be 2 years from now would be to run that and really prove to myself, like, yeah, you were second to last the first time you did it. Next time you did it, you ran the trail, you ran it. Like, that would be incredible. And so that's my long-term goal. I obviously have a lot more short-term goals when it comes to running and races. I'm back into running. I'm still not doing a clean run, which for me, a clean run is running without stopping, but I'm building distance, and it's a slow battle uphill to getting better at running when you haven't done it in a while. And this segues into my next topic perfectly, which is I am doing a version of 75 hard, which, if you haven't heard of 75 hard, it is, I believe, Andy Frisella is the guy's name who started it. And in his version, let me see if I can remember this properly. I did not write this down, even though I should have. You must eat clean, follow a specific diet, no cheat meals, no alcohol. You need to do 245 workouts a day, and one of them must be outside. You need to drink a gallon of water a day, read 10 pages of nonfiction. This is all per day, and then take one progress picture. I believe I have all of them. I'm doing a version of that I call 75 hard-ish. And I think I'm going to put my what I do in my sort of calendar, a link to it on Etsy. I'm going to follow a diet, which is eat one green meal a day, eat relatively clean. I get one cheat meal a week, and I can drink clear liquor during the week, and I can have beer once a week. So again, you're already seeing that there are edits or modifications in mine. But I can, you can do it either 75 days or for, there's multiple stages of it. And so I can get more intense if I want to for the next little stage. But for these 75 days, so it's, for me, 75 hard-ish. Like I said, one green meal, eat clean. I'm already following a vegan diet. Clear liquor during the week, one beer a week, or one day of beer a week. And then gallon of water. I already did that. So that's easy. And then two 45-minute workouts a day, one outside. I follow that. I do count walking as a workout, so walking on the trail, and then deep stretching. Because I have that hip issue, I'm trying to get in a lot of deep stretching. So I try to run every other day, and then I try to do deep stretching pretty much every day. And then reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book. I also added fiction because I think you can learn a lot from fiction just as much as you can nonfiction. Like for me, most of the lessons I've learned throughout my life, because I'm such like a book nerd, have been through fiction. My favorite book of all time, The Hobbit. That's Gandalf is sort of like, sue me for this one, but he's sort of like a more benevolent version of God. He takes the hobbits, protects them, and then lets them go and have their own free will when he feels they're ready. And I don't know, you can't tell me otherwise. I love The Hobbit. And then one progress pick. So that won't change. I take a progress pick every day. So yeah, I am on, what am I on now? I'm on like day 24 now, 25. I'm gonna try and do some TikToks of like up until now every week. And it's been going well so far. I feel lighter. I've only lost about a pound, but I feel tighter. So I think I'm gaining muscle. And so it hasn't translated yet to fat loss. So I think I'm just sort of trading off. But weight, I don't like weighing myself yet until I get to a comfortable weight. And then I can sort of weigh myself, every other day. And then, you fluctuate between like, I don't know, 1 to 3, 4 pounds every day anyway, just from water weight and activity and, those sorts of things. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens at the end of the challenge. I'm enjoying the mental toughness aspect of it. I'm reading a book about Quakerism right now because I want to see if Quakerism is for me. Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really just taking every day as it comes. I think if I don't even consider the option of not doing it as being available and taking every day, like I said, as it comes, then it doesn't seem like a giant, big, scary challenge. It just seems like, okay, I have to do this day, and then that's it. And then tomorrow, well, who cares about tomorrow? Because I'm just focused on today. So I think it's really, again, a nice way to think about life in general, even when you're not doing a challenge like this, of just being like, okay, goals are great and all, but let me just get through today. Let me do what I can today. And yeah, I've liked it so far. And I believe that there are, in this 75 hard, there's like different phases. So when you finish 75 hard phase 1, then you can follow the schedule. And I think it lasts a full year. So I'll consider, after finishing this first 75 hard, even though I'm doing hard-ish, my own little spin-in version on it. My goal is to keep going, but you never know. I might find something more valuable to try, different, something else to tweak. So I'm just taking it again, day by day. And finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about this book I read recently that I am obsessed with. And I think it like changed my whole view on the concept of life and our lifespan and what my role in my own life is. And that's 4,000 weeks. And it's based on the concept of, if you were to live, I believe, till 80 years old, you would have had 4,000 weeks of life, which is so crazy to me, because he mentions in the beginning of the book, giving people the option to guess, if you lived to 80, how many weeks would that be? Some people would say 10,000, 30,000, 50,000. And I wouldn't have guessed that high, but I never would have guessed only 4,000 weeks. It devastated me when I first realized that. I was like, oh my God, that's nothing. Like, it made me so sad. But, and ironically, a psychic I listened to said I'm going to live to 107. So let's have, I don't know, maybe 5,000 weeks instead. But still, that's so little in the grand scheme of the entire existence of the universe and human beings on the planet. We are such a blip on the timeline, the spectrum of existence of in the universe and even on this planet. And the book, ultimately, what I've realized was a guidebook to grief on how short life is. And it puts so perfectly into words this feeling I've always had, which is you have to make choices about what you spend your time on. You have to be cognizant that you only have so much time. And I always used to be I could never find the appropriate words to describe how sad it made me that I couldn't do every job, that I couldn't be an interventional cardiologist and a pathologist and a lawyer and an English PhD and a writer and a director and an actor. I didn't have enough time in my day, let alone my life, to be able to do all these jobs and be everything simultaneously. Because I think the earth is so beautiful. I think there's so many beautiful jobs that can give back to the community and can also give you so much self-fulfillment. And it made me so sad as a kid that I couldn't do everything and I couldn't explain it. And then this book, it like hit me like a freight train. I realized that that's grief. You're grieving for all the lives you could have had if you made different choices. If you had more time, this is what I would have done. If I had for sure another lifetime, this is what I would have done. If I had more time in my day, this is what I would have done. You can't do everything and you have to be mindful of your time. And I highly recommend this book to everyone. I'm going to link it in the description down below. But you're going to be sad when you read this because it is like takes you through the steps of grief. You're grieving the finality of life, the shortness of life, the inherent weakness of human beings. We are fragile. We only have so much capacity in our brain, so much capacity with our time. We're limited. And we have these really powerful brains, but still we're limited to time. We're limited to the physical realm of Earth. And it's almost like as soon as you accept that, then it's like the truth will set you free. You're like, okay, I have to make choices. I have to be smart about what I do. And it's horrific until you get to the acceptance portion of it. And then you're like, all right, this is reality. I'd rather come to this sooner rather than later. I was such a weird little existentialist, Edgar Allan Poe dark child that I would think about this when I was like 7. And I would be like, oh my God, how am I going to split my day in half so that I can be a doctor half the time, then a lawyer the other half? Because I was such a weird child that I was like, I need to be able to fit everything I can in my life. I even did it with school and college. I tried to fit as many degrees as possible in 4 years. I even tried to fit in a second minor. I did a German minor, but I wanted another minor, but I literally didn't have enough time in my day to get all these classes. And it just devastated me. So I think I've had this soul death, this death of the concept of infinity when it comes to human beings and their time and their sense of time so many times over. So I think it was easier for me to hear this again and be like, okay, this is terrible, but okay, I've thought about this before. I've come to this realization before. Like, let's fast forward through this to get to acceptance. But another thing that the book focused on was the purpose of life, and that sometimes life looks different for everyone. And sometimes we have this idea that life is only valuable if it hits a certain milestone. And I want to read, so I end every podcast now with a quote. And I wanted to end with this quote because I think it's a really beautiful way to look at life, because I've always wondered, People talk about when they lose like a child, especially like with school shootings and things like that, or like a baby, you think like, why were they here? What do their parents see as their purpose? Because a lot of people that lose kids young will say like they had their purpose here and they served their purpose, or they taught so many people so many things. And I empathize with that. And of course, I understand that concept. But I'm always a little bit skeptical because I'm always like, they didn't become an adult. They didn't become, the verb to become. And this is a really lovely quote about becoming. Sometimes you don't need to become. Because children grow up, we think that a child's purpose is to grow up, but a child's purpose is to be a child. Nature doesn't disdain what lives only for a day. It pours the whole of itself into the each moment. We don't value the lily less for not being made of flint and built to last. Life's bounty is in its flow. Later is too late. Where is the song when it's been sung, the dance when it's been danced? It's only we humans who want to own the future too. We persuade ourselves that the universe is modestly employed in unfolding our destination. We note the haphazard chaos of history by the day, by the hour, but there is something wrong with the picture. Where is the unity, the meaning of nature's highest creation? Surely those millions of little streams of accident and willfulness have their correction in the vast underground river, which, without a doubt, is carrying us to the place where we are expected. But there is no such place. That's why it's called utopia. The death of a child has no more meaning than the death of armies of nations. Was the child happy while he lived? That is a proper question, the only question. If we can't arrange our own happiness, it's a conceit beyond vulgarity to arrange the happiness of those who come after us. Tom Stoppard, The Coast of Utopia, within the book 4,000 Weeks. And I thought that was a really lovely quote because sometimes there's no real purpose to life except to enjoy it as it comes. And there's no guarantee for tomorrow. There's no guarantee the child will grow up to be the adults and go to college and then get a job and live a happy life. There's the joke that all you can guarantee in life is death and taxes. And that's true. So everything else in the middle, you just have to enjoy and hope for the best. So on that upbeat but also sad note, perfectly fit for the Happiest Sad Person podcast, I will leave you. Thank you so much for listening, watching, however you're receiving this podcast. And feel free to email questions, concerns, criticisms, complaints to the number 11 jacobsa@gmail.com. See you next week. Bye.